Oh, yeah, sure. I'm not here for that, but I'll do it, sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Father God in heaven, we just thank you for this community of people, these leaders that are here, and we pray that you will guide them and give them courage to make hard decisions, and we just pray that you bless this time. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome everybody to this special meeting. This meeting is, just so we're clear, is not a meeting where we're going to discuss and debate a mask mandate for the city of Concordia. It is a meeting to adopt a resolution stating the city's support of the public health efforts to help mitigate the disease spread within our community. First, we recognize that Commissioners Chuck Lamberts and Keaton Snavely, as well as City Attorney Justin Farrell, are attending via Zoom tonight. Second, the microphone system is now, that we are now using is very sensitive. We ask that all side conversations cease at this time, that phones are silenced, and that those on Zoom mute their microphones so as not to detract from the official meeting proceedings. Thank you for your cooperation. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
We do. This is a special meeting, and so the only topic is consideration of the resolution. However, we do need to add to it from what was published. We need to add a section for a presentation of the resolution, and then following that, a section for public comments. And then after that, we'll ask the commissioners to discuss and vote on the resolution. Okay,
thank you, Amy. Do we have a motion to amend the agenda?
I so move.
Second.
I have a motion from Christy and a second from Marcia. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The resolution before us is a resolution of the City of Concordia, Kansas, supporting public health efforts to mitigate disease spread within our community. Whereas Cloud County is experiencing a surge in positive cases of COVID-19, as evidenced by the 80 new positive cases in November, as of November 5th, 2020. And whereas whereas a large proportion of those positive cases are residents of Concordia, and whereas Cloud County is experiencing an increase in hospitalizations required as a result of COVID-19 complications, and whereas the regional hospitals we rely on for critical care of seriously ill COVID-19 and COVID-19 patients, non-COVID-19 patients are nearing capacity, and whereas local and regional hospitals are experiencing medical staff shortages as a result of the illness and quarantine, thereby further reducing available patient capacity. And whereas personal protective equipment for healthcare providers and first responders and testing supplies are increasingly more difficult to obtain, and whereas the Center for Disease Control and the Kansas Department of Health and Environment and local medical professionals recommend mitigation measures to slow and the spread of disease, including staying home when you're sick, washing hands properly and frequently, properly wearing personal protective equipment such as masks and/or face shields, when a distance of at least 6 feet cannot be maintained between you and the person who, to the people who are not members of your household, socializing distance, and making informed choices and calculated risks when considering travel and gatherings. And whereas November and December traditionally result in increased travel and a larger number of indoor gatherings of extended family and friends for the holidays, And whereas it is imperative to our local and regional economy that our businesses and schools remain fully operational and supported by patronage by the general public. And whereas we continue to fight COVID-19 while entering the traditional cold and flu season. And whereas the time frame for a reliable and available COVID vaccine is unknown. And whereas residents are not being honest with their symptoms, are not listing all known close contacts after testing positive, and are not abiding by quarantine orders. And whereas local government has the responsibility to protect its citizens from harm and serve its citizens in a manner that benefits the whole community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the governing body of the City of Concordia, Kansas, effective immediately, we will model behavior consistent with the recommendations of public health officials for the purposes of exercising community leadership by supporting public health officials during a public health emergency, and slowing the spread of COVID-19 and the cold and flu viruses that traditionally increase during the fall and winter, and maintaining a manageable patient load within our local and regional hospitals, and keeping our schools and businesses operational through patronage by the general public. And we strongly encourage Concordia residents and businesses to do the same. The resolution is effective upon passage by the governing body and will be published in the official newspaper and on the city's website, passed by the governing body and signed by the mayor on the 10th day of November 2020. Another statement is that this resolution does not mean that if the county health says, well, we need to have a mandate, that we're automatically going to do that. That is a different process that we have to go through if it is to be considered. So I just want to make that clear that if that recommendation, then that's a different process. At this time,
Mayor, Commissioners, Mark, thank you for reading the resolution. Got a few comments to kind of talk a little bit about how we came to it and why it's important for us to present this to you this evening, and why we think that we should go ahead and adopt this resolution of support. Last week, our Cloud County Health Department, Randy Bray, addressed the commission about the COVID-19 surge in Cloud County and advocated for a mask mandate by the City of Concordia. While the commissioners took no formal action at that time, they each shared their concern about the outbreak and their views on whether a government mandate was appropriate and necessary, with the majority desiring not to vote on a mask mandate at that time. So that brings us to today, where conversations with the commissioners during the meeting and after that meeting led us to believe that we needed to do something more to help implore on our community, that we need to take measures aligned with mitigating the health risks and virus and disease spread. As we continued talks with a few commissioners, even after the meeting, it was decided that public service announcements that we had gone ahead and decided to do weren't enough. They wanted to do something more, weren't quite sure what that was. And again, we're not prepared to discuss a mandate. So this evening, we're requesting that the commission take a formal public position in response to the current COVID-19 surge by passing a resolution in support of public health efforts to mitigate the spread of the virus. Again, as Mark said, the adoption of the resolution is not a mask mandate. Rather, it's a commitment to modeling the behaviors consistent with the recommendation of public health officials. Everything from staying home when we're sick, washing our hands, properly wearing personal protective equipment when social distancing cannot be maintained, and making smart choices about travel and about gatherings. We recognize that we will not stop the coronavirus, but we do need to do something that will help slow its spread. We can use a combination of all of these tools in our toolbox to help slow the spread. Why is it important to slow that spread? We've seen that our local hospital here provides excellent care. Tribute to Mr. Garnis and Dr. Poor and all of their staff. But we know that due to its size, its location, it does have limitations. So we do have some patients, COVID and non-COVID, that do have care needs that go beyond our capabilities. For those patients, we do need to transfer them out to some larger hospitals with more specialized care. Those regional hospitals are filling up, and they're also experiencing a staff shortage. We knew that we had nursing shortages in particular before the onset of this. We know that typically during this time of year, patient volumes do tend to fill the hospital already. The fact of additional illness of COVID-19 and quarantine has compounded that problem for many hospitals. Additionally, we're finding it harder and harder to find the appropriate personal protective equipment for our medical professionals. From a city operations standpoint, the situation directly impacts our EMS department as they work to staff longer transfers. So for example, I know you've probably heard of the one from this last weekend that normally we take transfers to Salina and Wichita. This last weekend, the closest place we could go was Omaha. So that takes a little bit longer for our guys to leave the department and go take care of that transfer. Additionally, they're simultaneously working with limited personal protective equipment. So we're melding those two items together. From a community perspective, the healthcare for our critically ill patients is delayed when we have to travel further to a larger hospital. Every minute counts. We must take action now to flatten the curve to support a manageable patient load for our local and regional healthcare operations. Again, we're not going to stop it, but we need to make it manageable for our area. Additionally, it's imperative to our local and regional economy that our local businesses and schools remain fully operational and supported by the patronage of the general public. Well, we've been really fortunate to provide some emergency working capital access to local businesses. That working capital funds are limited, and they're intended to be a one-time support until they can get back on their feet to address during a temporary slowdown. Businesses need support from general sales to remain solvent, and that includes solvency and retention of employees and maintenance of hours of operations to serve customers. From a community standpoint, when businesses experience reduced customer traffic and reduced employee availability due to illness and quarantine, their revenue suffers. We've seen that example obviously in Subway, right along the highway, where their doors were shuttered for a temporary amount of time due to lack of staff, apparently due to illness and quarantine. When businesses have to close down like that, or when they lose staff due to illness or quarantine, right now, the Federal Family First Coronavirus Relief Act that went effective April 1st is effective through the end of this year. Those businesses are required to pay up to 80 hours of COVID sick leave. That's in addition to employees' normally accrued vacation or sick leave or other paid time off. Additionally, they may be required to pay up to an additional 10 weeks of expanded Family Medical Leave Act pay due to school closures or due to daycare closures due to the coronavirus. When businesses are shut down, they're required to pay this leave, but they don't have revenue coming in. Does that make sense? So we're starting in a hole. We want to avoid that. It's important that our businesses stay open. Many working parents also rely on in-person instruction at school for daycare for their children. When school shut down the past spring, parents needed to be at home to care for their kids, and it may have caused some families to have to choose between childcare for their kids or choosing to go to work. And again, that strains our local businesses. From a city perspective, we're impacted by the same staffing challenges that private businesses are. Our revenue impact comes from our general fund revenue, which is 40% of that comes from sales tax revenue. When our businesses are closed or their hours of operation are reduced or they have a reduced customer load, their sales are down, and that can impact our sales tax revenue. Fortunately, we've avoided any negative impact to that revenue so far during this pandemic, which is really, really good. We've also been fortunate to maintain our current operations of businesses through this pandemic. So that's very, very good. We do need to be proactive. We need to take action now to flatten the curve to support our local schools and our local businesses so we can retain jobs, so we can retain local availability of goods and services that we've become accustomed to. And so we can retain that sales tax revenue so that the city, the county can continue to provide those services that people expect of our local governments. Again, this evening, we're not asking for a mask mandate, but we are asking for the commission to take a formal public position in response to the current COVID-19 surge by passing this resolution to support public health efforts to mitigate the spread of the virus. The county commissioners and the USD 33 Board of Education passed the same ordinance on Monday, and I have asked that the college board, the hospital board, and the cloud board also consider adoption of this resolution. It's going to take all of us working together to slow the spread of the virus. Tonight, we ask our commissioners to commit to modeling those behaviors consistent with those recommended by our public health officials. They are our experts, similar to if we were to have a road pavement failure or a utility failure, we'd look to an engineer for an expert recommendation. We look to our public health officials during a public health crisis. We're asking Concordia residents and the business community to adopt the same modeling of behaviors. Perhaps this unified and community-wide effort will flatten the curve before the Thanksgiving, Christmas, and holidays, so we can all enjoy some much-needed and helpful time with family. Commissioners, I'd stand for any questions now, but would ask that you wait until after public comments to discuss among yourselves.
Okay.
Are there any questions? Checker Keaton, any questions?
No.
Nope.
Now it's time for public comments. This is a time where citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. We are using a hybrid meeting format this evening, and we will welcome comments from both those attending in person and those attending through Zoom. The use of video conference technology can create an additional challenge when inviting public comments. Therefore, to help us proceed in an organized fashion, we will first recognize all those present in person to provide public comment. Then we will invite those attending through Zoom to provide public comments. For those attending in person, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. When you approach the podium, please state your name and address and any business or group affiliation you are representing with your comments. For those attending through Zoom, please use the chat feature to indicate you would like to speak. After selecting chat from the More drop-down menu, please type your name. If your name is different than how you are identified on Zoom, please also include your identifier so we can unmute the correct microphone. We'll acknowledge Zoom speakers in the order they are received. When you are acknowledged, please state your name and address and any business or group affiliation you are representing with your comments. We remind all speakers to speak respectfully. Personal attacks and vulgar language will not be tolerated and may result in loss of privilege to address the commission. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes per speaker. I'll now open it for public comments for those that are here.
I'll be keeping track of your time, so if you hear my voice, that's me telling you how much time you have left. I'll let you know when you have a minute,
Okay.
and then I'll let you know when you have 25 seconds.
Okay, thanks. You want to pick the name?
No,
Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Carmen Brady, address, right? 922 Republican Street, apartment number 2, Concordia, Kansas. So Concordia has seen, as we've mentioned, an exponential growth of the COVID-19 virus, and many residents continue to defy expert recommendations and these strong encouragements. As a citizen, I'm concerned and frustrated with the lack of leadership this governing body has taken. The role of the commission is not to be popular, but rather to make sure the community is as safe and secure as possible. At present, you have failed to do that. On November 4th, Commissioner Chuck Lambert said that we have to be responsible citizens. Since then, personal responsibility has given us 91 more cases and, over the weekend, a 50% increase above the norm in ER visits. According to KNCK, Mayor Mark Matthews said he does not support a government mandate because it, quote, be hard to enforce and, quote, it's a personal choice. No. This is a willful twisting of both recommendations of health officials and the idea of freedom. Time and time again, scientists and public health experts have said that masks best protect other people, not the person wearing it. Personal freedom is making a bad choice, like smoking a cigarette in private. Masks are like helping mitigate secondhand smoke. You are watching people blow smoke into the faces of non-smokers and saying that's the smoker's choice. If overrun hospitals cannot treat or transfer patients, those patients have had their freedom diminished. If healthcare workers are pulling overtime or getting sick and are being ridiculed for doing the right thing, their pursuit of happiness has been taken away. You as a commission are complicit.
25 seconds.
I'm exhausted by the narrative that death is the only outcome we should be concerned over, but let's consider that. At the time I am writing this, 239,000 American people have died of COVID. The population of Topeka and Lawrence combined is roughly 223,200. That is the population of 2 entire Kansas cities dead in the United States. The population of Clay, Washington, Cloud, Ottawa, Mitchell, and Republic counties combined are 40,150. Imagine now that since March 15th, all of those
That's
populations
2 minutes.
6 times over. Sorry, that's 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Instead of 25 seconds, I'll let you know when you have 10 seconds left. I think that would be better.
Okay. Other, okay, Dwight?
So I'm Dwight Whited. I'm the pastor of the Christian Church. I live at 312 East 5th Street. And you need to know the mathematics of this. I have a degree in theology and in mathematics. And so 3% of the population in any culture, and including ours here, 3% is what we call the radical minority. I deployed 12 times in 8 years overseas in the military. And it doesn't matter if you're worried about a guy with a vest, with a bomb, or a guy who wants to race his derby in Clyde on a Friday night. 3% of the people in this county are not going to be enforceable to wear a mask. Now, I wear a mask. I want us all to be safe, okay? 90% of the population is what we call the peaceful majorities. That's us that are doing this, okay? There's 7% are what we call influencers. That's you, that's us, that's pastors, that's grandmas. We have to figure out how we're going to get the influencers to influence the radical minority. We're not going to be able to do that by policing these people. That would be great and that would be easy, but mathematically, if we want to throw numbers out,
1 minute.
you know, the percentage of people getting over this is what? Dr. Bro, Dr. Poor, 99% or something like that. And one loss is too many, but we have to focus on how we're going to get people to get along and figure out how we're going to protect each other. Because me wearing a mask protects you. You not wearing a mask doesn't protect me at all. And so, and again, I want us to be safe, but I want us to understand that we're not ever going to control the radical minority, ever. You're not going to be able to police them. You're not going to make a law for them. They're going to break the law anyway. Just, you guys got to think about that as we get along in peace.
Thank you. Others here? Annie?
I'm Brandy Bray. I'm the County Health Department Administrator. I'm a registered nurse. And today we experienced our second COVID-19 related death in Cloud County. We were deeply saddened to share this, that another resident of Cloud County has died of COVID-19. The patient was a male over the age of 80 with underlying health conditions, and test results confirmed he had COVID-19 on November 8th, and he'd been isolated since then. However, this was an unexpected death. It was not something that we were foreseeing. Our deepest condolences go out to his family, friends, and loved ones. We have to understand that this is not a time to let our guard down. With Cloud County in the red, we are considered community spread. Please, we just ask for people to be cautious when going to church, family, or social gatherings, as you could come in contact with someone with COVID-19.
1 minute.
Someone wearing a mask is going to be able to help stop the spread or reduce the spread if they happen to be contagious at that time of attending any of those events. So we just ask for you to help stop the spread of this virus, limit public gatherings if possible to 25 or less. The biggest thing, wear a mask in public. Social distance, stay at home, cover all coughs and sneezes, wash your hands. The Cloud County Health Department continues to investigate and contact all cases and their close contacts, but we're getting stretched thin. We are having a very difficult time keeping up. If groups of people are exposed, it could take us 2 to 3 days before we're able to get in contact with all of those individuals.
10 seconds.
So please, please pass this to help slow the spread of this virus.
Thanks, Brandy. Others? David?
I'm Dave Garnis. I'm the administrator at Cloud County Health Center. My address is 883 North 230th Road in Aurora, Kansas. I really wasn't planning on saying anything. Sometimes it's better to blend into the background than to run around with a bullseye on you. But and I kind of lived my life that way. But I think it's worth noting, and you guys all know the statistics, but it's worth I think saying them again. Yeah, I think there was 35 positives in the month of September, 115 in October. And as of yesterday, I believe we're at 150 or 155 through yesterday, which was November 9th. So clearly we are experiencing a pretty wide swath through this county. Our staff, and I speak on behalf of the staff and the medical staff, not that they maybe even 100% agree with me, but you know, clearly we've seen a stress on our staff. They're getting sick. We went from doing our highest day last week was 40 swabs through our drive-through to yesterday, I believe we did 80 swabs through our drive-through. And I don't know my stats for today.
1 minute.
Clearly we have an outbreak. Clearly we have some issues, and I, like everyone else, want to see the curve bending. You know, we may have our scientific beliefs, the medical staff, myself, CDC, KDHE, of you know, the masks, and we're not here to debate that, and I understand that, Mayor Matthews. But I think, you know, in the perfect world, that's what we'd love to see. On the other hand, we'd like to express our appreciation for the proclamation, appreciation for acknowledging our staff's major hard efforts of taking care of patients, our staff's undying loyalty to make sure people are taken care of. And so we appreciate your acknowledgement of the task at hand.
10 seconds.
You know, giving the community a vote of confidence to do the appropriate things with hand sanitizer, washing hands, and maintaining social distancing and wearing masks. So we appreciate your support. We'd love to do more, but we appreciate your support.
Thanks, David. Any other comments from here in the room? Okay, I'll open it to the public comments from those attending via Zoom. Who's monitoring that?
Nobody has messaged in yet.
Yes, they have. Dr. Bro would like to speak. And then Connor Thrash would like to speak as well.
Okay. I'll call for Dr. Bro.
Hi, I'm Dorothy Bro. I live at 904 3rd Avenue here in Concordia. I appreciate, again, like Dave was saying, that that you guys have acknowledged what a outbreak this is in our community now, and the stress that it is putting on our medical staff, facilities, nurses, everyone all around. Again, like Brandy mentioned, we did have an additional death today. We have 3 COVID patients currently admitted in the hospital here, multiple others that we have transferred out. This is what we feared. This is what we warned about months and months ago when we requested, not to this body, but requested for the mask mandate for the county in the past. I appreciate this resolution, but I think it really does nothing different than has been done before. I think now is the time to take action, and this resolution does not take action.
1 minute.
I think if you want to do something actionable, mandating masks in all of the public offices, all of the city hall, the county, of course, could do the county commission. The post office is mandating those of all your employees and visitors would be a good start, a good actionable plan. But I do stand by that. I think that it's going to be necessary to do a mandatory mask mandate here very soon. I don't know how many more people have to die or how many hospitalizations have to happen or transfers that we can't do and people die of a heart attack or a stroke because of no availability. we want to stop the transmission in the
seconds.
community, we've got to have a mask mandate. You said it yourself, you want people to be able to continue to work and do their jobs and keep businesses. So do that safely with the masks. Thank
That's
you.
time.
Thanks. Connor?
Hi, my name is Connor Thrash, and my address is 1208 Cedar Street here in Concordia. So I am a senior here in Concordia High School, and I unfortunately myself have contracted COVID-19. I, like many others, have been experiencing uncomfortable symptoms, and I can wholeheartedly say that I have been sick many times throughout my life, but I have never felt this poorly. Even just giving those few sentences right there, I am struggling to get a deep breath in. But even though I am experiencing this discomfort, am lucky. I'm lucky that I am well enough that I don't have to worry about the severity and the complications that can arise from COVID. I am lucky enough that I am starting to get better. But over 1 million people worldwide cannot share that privilege. Their lives were lost due to the ruthlessness of this disease. And it's heartbreaking to hear the stories because these aren't just numbers. They're humans. It could be me, you know what I mean? This is something that doesn't just affect a small majority, it affects a wide variety of people. So I would just like to say that we have every opportunity here to prevent this from growing and losing more innocent lives. We have the facts laid out for us on the table. Our doctors, our nurses, and our healthcare professionals here in Concordia are begging us to listen to them. These are our friends and our neighbors who are risking their lives to study and treat this deadly disease, and they are working tirelessly every day to care for our hurting community and find a way to prevent the spread. But they can't do it alone. Who are we to ignore these heroes that are desperately trying to get us to hear them? They're doing their best, but it really requires us as a community and our participation to fully stop this spread. So I would just like to say it is very important for us to listen to the professionals in this and the people here in our community of Concordia who are begging us to do something to stop this spread. And that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. Anybody else?
Harvey Jones.
Mark,
Harvey.
they're looking at Harvey Jones wants to spin waving at the camera.
Hello, my name's Harvey Jones. I live at 315 West 10th Street, Concordia, Kansas, and I'd like to thank that young man there for giving us an insight on what's going on with the COVID. Number one thing, my sister lives at Wamego. She says that Manhattan, you cannot go in a business there without a mask, and they're a whole lot bigger than we are. If you mandate a mask, I don't really feel that you should be running our business in this city. There's proof that masks help. There's a study done by KU that I just looked up today. You can get on KU site and find it. But to ignore all this and think it's folly is not the right thing to do. And I think there should be a mask mandate, and that you can figure out how to enforce it. If you have to have people at a store say they try to come in, you don't want them in, they want to get in, call the police. I don't think you can legislate a lot of things, but you can at least try to do something for your communities.
1 minute.
That's all I've got to say. I just would like to say that everyone that's come up here, I agree with what they want to do. And you should have the backbone to put the mask in place and figure out a way to get the project going and to control it and monitor it. Thank you.
Anybody else on Zoom?
Sir, would it be possible for me to speak?
Sure.
I apologize for my tardiness. My name is Scott Longfellow. I live at 335 West 8th Street. I'm just here as a citizen. I want to let you know that I contracted COVID-19. The only people that I was around when I was potentially contagious was at work. I was wearing a mask as required by my employer for all employees. While I was at work, none of the people that I was around contracted COVID. We need to continue commerce because our checkbooks don't care about this disease. We're either working or we're not, we're taking care of business or we aren't. From my observation, wearing masks is helpful from my personal experience and may be a useful defense against a disease that doesn't care about us. It only infects. It takes courage to lead people to do something they don't want to do. And I don't know you folks, so I'm not suggesting that we haven't done that yet, but we're at the precipice of a situation where we need to have very strong leadership. And what I would say is let's have the courage to lead. It's difficult to lead people to do something they don't want to do. But let's take the courage to encourage people to do that. And let's ask them to carry that out so that we can all take care of our checkbooks and take care of the health of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, I'll close public comments at this time. Consideration of resolution 2113, support of public health efforts, recommended motion. Do any of the commissioners have any discussion or comments that they want to make before we vote on the resolution?
First of all, I would like to say thank you to everybody who had anything to say. I know that probably there are others who have things to say and just chose not to at this time. But honestly, with the way that things are going, I think that this resolution is too little too late probably. I would be, I'm happy to pass the resolution. I think we really need to seriously consider a mandate. I'm in agreement with that.
And I'm in agreement with Christy very much so. I think we're too late. We should have done this. Well, like I said last week, I think the county should have done it when it started, but that's hindsight's always better than foresight. But I think now it's time for us to step up and pass a mandate. There are ways to enforce it. I just think it's necessary. It's not going away. Doesn't hurt to wear a mask. I'm glad the surgeon wore a mask 2 weeks ago when I had surgery. He survived. You know, we survived. Once you get used to it, you'll forget you've got it on. And I know you can look up on the internet, you can find any answer to agree with what you are feeling, but I think it's time we all step up and say, we have to do something about this. We can't just let it keep going. People haven't complied. They aren't going to comply unless they have to, and there's a penalty. And I think there should be a penalty for not complying to a mandate.
Keaton?
I'm not for a mandate. I won't be for a mandate. I won't be for government telling people what they can and cannot do. I do believe it is our right as citizens to do what we feel is right and what we do believe is right, and in keeping everybody safe. If I go see my grandparents, I'd probably wear a mask. But me, myself, contracting the virus and my entire family contracting the virus, we've had a cough, we felt like crud, but it's nothing compared to having the flu. I'm just not going to fall into the same category and try to shove this onto everybody else. I do believe every case is different, and I do believe there are cases out there that are harsher than others, but I'm strongly against a mask mandate for the city. I won't stand behind it. That's where I stand. I am for this resolution. I am for people stepping up and doing what they feel is right. I am for protecting the ones that are at risk, which are the elders, which I will always stand behind. But I can't stand behind mask mandate for everybody. That's all I have.
Chuck?
Yeah, I'm just putting my thoughts together. I apologize. I'd like to blame it on a technological glitch, but it's just me putting my thoughts together. Philosophically, I in line with Keaton. Practically speaking, the numbers aren't lying. I think there's a lot of research that would support that masks aren't necessarily the end all be all to slowing this down. I agree with that. I think that what does help is socially distancing, is staying home when people aren't feeling well, is washing our hands regularly. Unfortunately, we as a community have not seemed to have taken that to heart the way that we should. And that we may be past a point of letting people make that decision for themselves. I don't like government telling people what to do. I don't like the idea of legislating morality. I really am opposed to that. In a philosophical stance, it's hard for me to debate philosophy when somebody who has a heart attack may be laying on a bed for a couple hours before we can find out where to get them to a hospital. It's difficult for me to debate philosophy when we are running out of medical resources. I don't philosophically approach or approve a mask mandate. We really have tried to ask people to do the right thing. I think that a resolution supports that stance. I agree with Christy and Marcia that it may be too little too late. I think it's still something that we can and should do. I would also be supportive of taking more stringent efforts as part of a government to put this in place. I don't like it. I don't want to, but I'm going to be a lot more comfortable with somebody yelling at me because they have to wear a mask than somebody yelling at me because their loved one wasn't able to get to a hospital in time. When this thing first started really getting people's attention in February and March, it was in Italy. And the primary reason it was getting people's attention wasn't so much this very illness, but rather that the medical institutions were frankly being overwhelmed. And we're seeing that now. We are going into cold and flu season. People are only going to be continuing to get ill, not just with COVID, but with other things. And I'm worried about what the ramifications are if we don't take more stringent action as a governmental body. I want people to do what's right on their own, but it doesn't take very long driving around a Walmart parking lot with seeing random, shopping carts just left out in the air to realize that not enough people are going to do the right thing on their own. I support more strict efforts on the city's part to try to enforce not just a mask mandate, but all the guidelines, gatherings, limiting that to where we can keep our schools open, or we can keep our businesses open. If the whole county is sick, then it's going to be pretty hard for businesses to be open. I'm all about people having their rights, but there are also certain steps that we in government take to help protect those who aren't able to protect themselves. And unfortunately, I think that we have found ourselves at that crossroads.
Okay. I fall much more in line with what Keaton and Chuck are saying. And as probably most people in this room know, I do not favor a mandate and telling people what to do. However, I have gone on record as saying if and it's obviously rapid approaching it or maybe gone past that if citizens cannot be responsible and if they cannot take measures themselves to protect themselves and others, then it may be time to discuss, and it can be discussed and brought for a vote. If somebody doesn't want to vote for it, they don't have to. If somebody wants to, they can. But I think that there's more problems out there than people not wearing masks. I have done a lot of reading on masks, the pros and cons. I don't think it's been proven that masks are going to curb things. It's certainly not going to stop anything, but it may slow something down, but we don't know why some of the increases we've had. We don't know if it's from not wearing masks. There's a lot of people, or I've heard a lot of stories about people getting sick and not going to say anything to anybody. They're going to still go to work. They're going to still go out in public. They want their paycheck. They're not going to go get tested. I got sick. I went and got tested. It was negative. I stayed the heck away from people for over 2 weeks. Actually more, because I stayed away until I started feeling good. I had all the symptoms of COVID. I had all of it, except for the respiratory part of it. And I won't go into details on the other parts. But I think that, you know, masks, that's one issue. The other issue is getting people encouraged to take responsibility, and if they don't feel good, stay home. The hygiene part is extremely important, but it is scary that there are people that will just go out openly in public when they know they're not feeling good or they've had a fever the night before or whatever. So I'm not going to sit here and say, no way, there's not going to be a mask mandate. It's something that the city commission needs to discuss in a separate environment, separate meeting, and take that up. But that's my stance. I would now ask for a motion on the resolution. No motion?
I would move to approve the motion as read. I would also, as an aside or a different conversation, ask if we can draw up and prepare language that would help support a mandate for our next meeting. With a last-ditch effort that if people don't want this to be something that we enforce, that they do so themselves. The reality, as Mark said, is that people aren't taking responsibility for themselves. They're going out into public when they just don't feel really well. They're not taking precautions that they can and that they should. And that if I'm fully supportive of moving forward with a mandate, but if people don't want that to happen, I guess, and I don't like ultimatums. So I hope this doesn't come across as that either. But if people don't want it, then they need to do what they need to do on their own, so that we're not forced into that position. But if they're not, I'm fully willing and ready to take that action as a governmental official to put that in place. So I guess that's my motion to approve the resolution with a whole lot of other stuff with it.
Okay, I'll second your motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Chuck. And did we get the motion down? We got it recorded, so. I have a motion from Chuck and a second from Christy for resolution 2020-2113. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Now ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mark,
Yep.
can I ask one question?
Justin?
How long is the resolution going to be in effect before you determine it's a time to make a mandate?
I can honestly tell you, I don't know.
That's not very comforting to a lot of people that are going through this.
I'm glad it is.
It's not very comforting.
With all due respect, the public comments have closed. I apologize, Mr. Jones. I know you wanted some clarification, but by Robert's Rules of Order, the public comments have closed.
Okay.
Probably, just for my clarification as well. So we just passed the resolution that offers a commitment for us to model behavior and encouraging businesses, public to model that same behavior. The commissioners, did I understand correctly, you want me to draft up an ordinance language that would result in a mask mandate for consideration at our next meeting, which is next Wednesday, the 18th. Is that correct?
Draft up something for discussion and closing.
Okay.
Yeah, point of clarification, Amy. I think it's not so much a mask mandate, but rather COVID mitigation approach. I think mask mandate in the language in that title can become kind of a point of contention. And really what we're wanting to do is, if people don't do what they need to do, is to set forth the guidelines that we believe are the most helpful in slowing the spread of this illness.
But our next level support, for everybody's clarification, then this resolution is our last tool. The next tool is an ordinance, that whatever language we put in there would have a consequence section or a punishment section. And ordinances become basically like a law here. That's our only next step. Is that what you want me to do? All right, thank you.
That was the motion that Chuck made.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And is it appropriate, can I ask Randy a question?
All right, Justin?
Yeah, we've allowed for clarification for Mr. Jones. That's fine. As a commissioner, you can ask for clarification.
Randy, what happens when you become aware that somebody is violating a quarantine order?
Currently,
So there's no ramifications other than somebody's gonna get sick, maybe.
partly the reasoning behind that, because due to HIPAA laws, I'm unable to share who is in quarantine. And so we have recently shared due to HIPAA, we are able to share, and some laws that were passed here recently or earlier on this, that we're able to share with EMS, who is possibly in quarantine, isolation, due to the fact that if they do have a case or a dispatch out, they know that that person has possibly had a close contact and they need to be fully geared. So really, you know, aside from me calling and saying, this person is out and about and they are supposed to be in quarantine, there's not a whole lot I can do. I have read the newspaper recently and have seen somebody who was arrested that was in quarantine. And I contacted the city police department and said, hey, just so you're aware, that person was supposed to be in quarantine. And so other than that,
thank you.
It's all about personal responsibility.
So I have a question then too for Brandy. So if there was a mask mandate in effect, even if those people in quarantine were out and about, it would still help keep someone else from getting COVID.
Yes. There have been people out and about that I have seen that have either just came off of isolation or should be in quarantine, that are picking up fast food inside the restaurant wearing no masks. And those people are to be either still in quarantine or could be still considered contagious. And there's no mandate. So if we've asked them to quarantine and they're not following those because nobody knows that they're supposed to be in quarantine, well, if we put something down, everybody knows that everyone around us are supposed to be wearing masks. It's gonna help us.
So we'll put together some language for consideration at your meeting next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Brandy, if someone's violating quarantine, you said, I just want to make sure I got that clear. You said you can give that person's name out without HIPAA violation.
I can give it to police department to do some type of a law enforcement approach. Most of the time I call and I say, hey, I just got a report of this. You do realize what quarantine means.
And I don't know where in it is written, but if I'm supposed to be quarantining and I'm out, I go down to a local restaurant and I'm in there without a mask on and I'm getting my food and everything, and you hear about it, and you call me up and you say, I hear you were out and about, you're supposed to be in quarantine. And you know that, and here's what I want to know, what your stick is I am required to report you to local law enforcement. But there's not a requirement for you to do that right now, is there?
No, it is a Kansas statute, if I remember correctly, for a health order for quarantine.
Yeah.
A public health order for quarantine.
I mean, I hate it that we have to get law enforcement involved with it and everything, but I'm just thinking, and it's something we need to think about. I'm just thinking about, you know, set masks aside for a second, that if you hear of somebody and you call them, what you have for weight to back it up, and what you can get from us without being, we're gonna sick the police on you.
I have a public health order for quarantine, which I can provide, that shows that those people are supposed to be in quarantine or in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And those people have, those documents have been mailed to those individuals. And so they would have received those. Previously, this summer and this spring, we were having law enforcement deliver those papers, but it got very time consuming and just overwhelming. We felt like we were being a burden on them because, you know, they have their jobs to do. And if I have 100 quarantine letters going out, you know, how do they have time to make those deliveries? And so we have had a couple people that we have sent via law enforcement to deliver quarantine papers because we were sure that, you know, they weren't going to take them seriously. And so then we had a signed paper saying that, yes, I delivered this and delivered this to them. It's hard to know what to do. And as far as, you know, with the law enforcement delivering them, at least then they were aware of,
Well,
hey, they're supposed to be in quarantine.
Well, it's hard to do that if you don't have an or else, and you don't have an or else. You know, and that's hard. I realize that, and I don't know what the solution is right now, and I don't want to get into the debate on it, but you know, to me, if the person is supposed to be in quarantine, they're seen out and about and it's verified, and I know it's tricky with HIPAA laws and stuff, who all gets involved, but hey, this is your first warning and there isn't a second warning. But that comes in the or else thing, and we don't know what the or else is right now, and I hate to be, you know, I say that I have a problem with mandating masks. I have a hard time mandating, you know, calling the police if somebody's, you know, got the second strike. So those are some things that we need to discuss and talk about, because, you know, having you out there kind of dangling with a paper stick, you know, that's not real effective, and but we've got to discuss that. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I could mention a couple of things. When it comes to the enforcement of these things, you know, when the Ad Astra plan was issued by the governor, there was a big upheaval by our legislature, and they took a lot of the enforcement teeth out of that. It used to be a rather decent fine if you violated a health order. So if there was a mask mandate in place, or you know, your business was supposed to be closed down and you didn't shut down, they took the teeth out of that almost completely. What they did was they made it a civil fine. So what happens in that situation is that somebody sees it, then the prosecuting attorney can then, you know, they can be issued a civil, or basically the city attorney or the county attorney, whoever the prosecutor is, if given an affidavit, can then file a civil action. It's not a criminal action anymore. Now, when it comes to a quarantine order, and the last I saw, now they may have took the teeth out of that as well. The last I saw, that was a Class C misdemeanor if you violated a quarantine order. Class C misdemeanors range in the statute was a fine of $25 to $100 if the quarantine order was violated. We have run into, in numerous places all over actually the United States, the problem in enforcing those things is sometimes law enforcement doesn't have the time or just doesn't want to mess with chasing people down who may be in quarantine. Also, the HIPAA issue as well. So the enforcement is somewhat there. It's just very difficult to do. But there is enforcement mechanisms there that can be explored if need be, and certainly could be implemented if we need to do so.
Thank you.
One last comment that I'd try to make, if I don't know if there's a section for commissioner comments. One thing I'm quite certain of is that of the 5 commissioners that are serving, not one of us is taking this lightly. We might have different ideas, different approaches about what is the best, what's the right thing to do. I know that in my conversations with at least one of the commissioners, trying to balance the protection of individual liberties as well as the responsibilities of a governing body. And we are at a very challenging crossroads with where that balance lies. I think that we are taking equal heat from those that think we're not doing enough, as well as from those who feel like we are overreaching. One thing I am very, very relieved, though, is that I am not a medical provider, because I believe that the position that we are in is much more manageable. It's much more that we do have this philosophical discussion as opposed to the medical challenges that they're seeing day in, day out. I do listen to what our medical professionals are saying and respect their guidance in this. I believe that all of us as commissioners do. But I know that I've heard from a number of people that I'm not paying attention because I'm trying to advocate for wearing masks, and I'm not paying attention because I'm trying to support individual liberties. I believe that I speak for all of us as commissioners that we are taking this very seriously. It may not be the action that we want as we want it to be, but it is something that we are very aware of. We are trying to become as educated and responsible as we can, and working the best that we can to balance our responsibilities as elected officials, not only to maintain that liberty, but also to help provide the safety for our citizenry. So, thank you.
Okay, upon that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
I have a motion from Christie. Marcia? In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, everyone, for attending and participating.